So apparently, the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is facing scrutiny after reports surfaced that he shared sensitive military information in a second, not the first, second private signal chat, and this time with his wife and his brother. Now, the White House has come out to defend him, stating that he has not shared a classified information yet. But obviously, there's gonna be controversy because of the first signal chat that leaked before, which shared some military information about the attack on Houthis of the Yemen origin. If you know about that, let's check the debate.
What do you want to say, sir, about the signal chat controversy?
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax.
They are the best people in the world until they're out of the cult. I can't wait to see the same playbook as the first term. They're the best person. He's the best person for the job, right? They argued that he's the best person for the job. And then when we cheer that he resigns or gets fired, it's, oh, you just want to see Trump fail. You're just happy that they're failing. No. We just could see the writing on the wall and know that he's unqualified for the job. And then MAGA will say, oh, this shows good leadership. He's getting out the people who are doing a bad job. Do you not want him to get rid of the people doing a bad job? No, we don't want him hiring unqualified people in the first place. This is just going to be the first of what I think is going to be many cabinet members. Still remains to be seen. If he's going to be the first cabinet member out, but it's not looking good. It is not looking good for the guy who promised to stop drinking if he got the job. It's not looking good for him. Thoughts and tariffs. Cheers, Pete Hegseth. Cheers.
Even Republicans are turning on Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary and Fox News regular. Pete Hegseth is under fire from his own party after allegedly sharing sensitive military intel in a Signal group chat with his family. Representative Don Bacon, a former Air Force general, by the way, said it out loud. He is an amateur. Trump should consider firing him. Even a former Pentagon spokesperson just resigned, calling Hegseth's leadership chaotic. Meanwhile, Trump says he's doing a great job. Tremendous job. So just to recap, sharing military secrets, fine. Texting a doctor, prosecuted. Being unqualified, promoted. Speaking out, disloyal. Welcome to the upside down world. And yes, Yemen was involved.
The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, just used the White House Easter egg roll, yes, a kids event, as the stage to go scorched earth on the media and former Pentagon officials. Why? Because reports just dropped that Hegseth was using a second encrypted signal group to talk about classified military plans. One of the people in the chat, his wife. Now, instead of addressing why top secret info was allegedly being discussed outside official channels, Hegseth decided to punch back. He called the leaks anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees and said that the media is just trying to slash and burn reputations. But here's the thing, these aren't all anonymous sources. His former press secretary, John Yoloit, went on record saying it's been a month of total chaos at the Pentagon. He said that the dysfunction is so bad, it's distracting from the president. And what was Hegseth's response? I'm proud of what we're doing for the president. No denial, no accountability, just vibes. This is the guy who claims he's putting the Pentagon back in the hands of fighters. But what war fighters are these? The ones leaking plans in Signal group chats with the other spouses? We're watching the real-time erosion of norms that are supposed to keep classified military plans, classified.
Uh-oh, looks like Pete Hegseth might be in for a load of trouble because the first senior Republican, Don Bacon of Nebraska, has came out and stated Hegseth needs to go. So Happy Hour Hegseth may be in for a firing. He went on to say that this is one of the reasons why they were nervous about making him the Secretary of Defense in the first place. Also adding in, if it's true that he had another chat with his family about a mission against the Houthis, it's totally unacceptable. I'm not in the White House and I'm not going to tell the White House how to manage this, but I find it unacceptable and I wouldn't tolerate it if I were in charge. So the question is, now that Don has come out, will we see other Republicans that will come out and ask for his termination? So it's looking like Don might be the first one to be telling Pete,
Quick question. Is leaking sensitive military operational details in a group chat something that you could put on a resume? Just asking for a friend. Because NPR is reporting that the White House has begun the process of looking for new Secretary of Defense. Womp, 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 womp. Hold on, let me find my surprised face that he was not qualified to do the job. I told you guys yesterday this was moving quickly and at very high levels, and I would keep you updated. And even after the White House issued a statement yesterday saying that they are standing by Pete Hegseth, this headline breaks today. And NPR is getting this information from a U.S. official who was not authorized to speak publicly. NPR has reached out to the White House for comment, and as of now, they have not responded. For those of you unaware, this comes on the heels of a New York Times article yesterday breaking that said Pete Hegseth leaked the details of the March 15th Yemen attack on a second Signal group chat, a group chat that included his wife, his brother, and his personal attorney, for reasons passing understanding. This is also coming after a spokesperson for the DoD who resigned a couple days ago took out an article in Politico calling the Pentagon in chaos because of Pete Hegseth's leadership, and that it was completely dysfunctional and a huge problem, and military secrets were being leaked about Panama and other places of interest. There were mass firings with no explanations as to why they were getting fired. It's pandemonium at the Pentagon because, surprise, surprise, you hire a Fox and Friends news personality to run the military, and he screws it up. So anyway, Secretary Hegseth, go ahead and put your ability to leak classified details on a group chat next to your, experience with Excel, maybe? Might help you out in the private sector.
Is Pete Hegseth about to be axed from the White House, from his position as Defense Secretary? Because that's what NPR is reporting. Rumors are swirling that basically the Pentagon has just been in disarray since the guy got into office, since Pete Hegseth took over. And, second Signal Gate chat leak. This guy is, he's drinking on camera in another country when he promised that if he got the position, he wouldn't drink anymore. So I would say it's almost 1:30 in the afternoon here in California, and I would bet by this evening word is going to come down, because NPR is a really trusted news source, and for them to start leaking this out or saying that they're getting whisperings, that means they have some serious inside people giving them good information. So Pete Hegseth, I think, is out by tonight.
So I have been meaning to make this video all day, and I keep putting it off because I got other shit that I'm doing, but it is time to talk about Pete Hegseth. Now, for those of you who don't know, Pete Hegseth got caught up in Signalgate 2.0 over the weekend. Hegseth shared detailed military plans in second Signal chat that included his wife and brother. So he's not just like, ooh, I was, coordinating with senior administration officials. He had personal friends and family on there too. Initially, old Pete and the administration tried to play the fake news game. Time and time again, as they peddle these lies, no one ever calls them on it. This is what the media does. They take anonymous sources, disgruntled former employees, and they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. And apparently the Trump administration basically said the same thing. Oh, this is fake news. This is fake news. In this case, it's not. It's John Olyat, who is one of Pete's close personal friends and was working as his public relations deputy secretary, and is a very close personal friend and a big supporter of Pete Hegseth and a big supporter of the Trump administration, and was handpicked for this position. And he basically outlines how Hegseth's DOD is in absolute chaos right now. And even though he's a supporter, he left voluntarily and has basically said this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And he is aware of that Signal chat. I don't know if he was in it personally, but apparently this Signal chat was set up prior to his confirmation. It was his wife, it was his brother, it was his lawyer, it was about a dozen close confidants, and it was set up to try to coordinate messaging and coordinate the campaign to whip votes for his confirmation. He just never shut it down, and apparently was sharing classified details with his friends and family in that Signal chat. And again, this is not an anonymous source. This is one of his close personal friends that worked with him at DOD that is saying, yeah, this is why everything is blowing up. Apparently one of the people who was fired or reassigned or whatever was the person who was leading the investigation into the first Signal chat. And so what it seems like to me is that while investigating the first one, they uncovered the second one, and some of those reassignments, it appears to me, at least, some of those reassignments and firings was about trying to cover up the second Signal chat. Things are getting worse for old Pete, because earlier today this happened. An amateur person, GOP Rep Bacon, says Hegseth should go. The Nebraska lawmaker is the first House Republican to recommend the president fire the Secretary of Defense. Rep. Don Bacon, a prominent Republican on the House Armed Services Committee, became the first sitting GOP lawmaker Monday to suggest President Donald Trump should fire Pete Hegseth, calling the chaos at the Pentagon one reason why many Hill Republicans were privately uneasy with the defense secretary's nomination in the first place. Recall, and I talked about this a lot when he was nominated, his nomination was stalled for a good while. And it took Trump getting on the phone personally to whip the votes to make it happen, and it was still a tied vote. He's the only defense secretary that I'm aware of that has ever been passed with the vice president being the tie-breaking vote. That's unusual. There were concerns. The things that I talked about back when all that was going on and Trump was having to whip votes for this, I said, look, there is no margin for error for any of these people, because you want your confirmations, your first round of confirmations, you want to sail through so that you can spend the political capital enacting your policy agenda. You don't want to get bogged down in procedural shit like confirmations and expend your political capital on confirmations if you have a big agenda to pass. They're still working on reconciliation. The Republicans are way deep in the trenches on that. The big, beautiful omnibus bill that Trump wants for immigration and tax reform and all that stuff, that's still coming. How are you supposed to put your time and energy and effort and spend your political capital on that if you're dealing with this other shit? Well, it appears they might not be dealing with it too much longer. The White House is looking to replace Pete Hegseth as defense secretary. We'll see if that turns out to be true, but generally speaking, this kind of stuff tends to not be fake news. Generally speaking, when these are the headlines that are coming out, if it's not happening today, it's happening soon. The bigger question for me is how much of this is on Pete Hegseth and how much of this is him getting railroaded and basically falling on his sword to protect all the other people. Because remember, there were like 13 people in that original Signal chat, and they were all real comfortable discussing classified information on Signal, and now Pete's the one going down for it. Is this a matter of, okay, it took a lot to get him in place anyways, and he's going to have to be the one to go? Or is this going to turn into something bigger? And I asked that question back when this happened, that, hey, this doesn't seem to be going away. This could be something that sticks to the administration and really hobbles the administration for some time to come. The Republicans were real quick to say, hey, it's over, let's all move on. And it's not moving on. This could have legs. This could really stick to this administration.
I know one of the guys who was kicked out of the Pentagon last week, a guy named Dan Caldwell. And he is someone who I vehemently disagree with on a lot of very, very important issues. But I've known him for over 10 years. And despite all of those really important disagreements about things like the way the veterans healthcare system works, I find Dan Caldwell to be an honorable person. And I personally find it very suspicious that he and some of his colleagues, who are Pete Hegseth's closest advisors and have been for a decade plus, find it very, very weird that they're among the ones who are purged. And I'll admit my bias out front. I think this is Elon Musk driven. If it is not Elon Musk driven, I think it is likely driven from the more pro-war camp or pro-interventionalist. I know Dan and his colleagues from Concerned Veterans for America, which is what Pete Hegseth used to be the executive director of. In a prior version of Concerned Veterans America, before they were most interested in trying to dismantle the VA, again, disagree a lot with Dan on this. Before it was CVA, Pete Hegseth ran a group called Vets for Freedom, which was a just rabidly pro-Iraq war group. It was a group that, led by Hegseth, would attack anti-war veterans like myself and a lot of my colleagues. Now, when Dan became part of Concerned Veterans for America, he was on part of their government affairs or legislative staff, and that's how I interacted with him. First, as an individual, independent advocate, a student veteran at the time looking to get laws passed to help myself and my fellow veterans. Now, Concerned Veterans for America basically pushes the idea that the Department of Veterans Affairs is inherently broken, it is irreparable, and it must be destroyed, dismantled. The way that they pitch this is veterans should have absolute choice and they should get health care anywhere that they want. But in practical terms, this doesn't work because the private healthcare system is A, not designed for veterans and the many needs that we have in our healthcare, and B, it's just far, far, far more expensive. So the ultimate goal, maybe not of Concerned Veterans for America's individual advocates, but for their funders, their goal was to reduce the tax burden on billionaires. That's the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers, like Dan, are anti-interventionalist, meaning that they would prefer not to send troops to war. They're much more of the free market, traditional Republican types. And while I don't agree with their ideology, I think that it's at least logically sound. Now, personally, I think that Hegseth got involved with Concerned Veterans for America primarily because he saw it as a paycheck and a platform that he could use to grow his personal brand. Being a guest on Fox News representing this veterans group, Concerned Veterans for America, which was funded by the Kochs, led to him getting a spot on Fox News, which led to him getting his show and really building out this conservative right-wing brand. And though he eventually did rebrand himself as this guy who's skeptical of the war, I'm never going to forget, because I was there when his group, Veterans for Freedom, was attacking and trying to personally destroy any veteran who spoke out against the Iraq war that I served in. During the Trump administration, I was working at Vietnam Veterans America, a major congressionally chartered veteran service organization. And when Trump won, Concerned Veterans for America kind of aligned with Trump because they saw him as a way to privatize the VA or give veterans choice. But Concerned Veterans for America didn't wholeheartedly endorse the Trump platform. They kept them at arm's length, except when it came to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Now, despite our major and very fundamental and important differences, I have always respected Dan Caldwell. I have always thought that he is a good person. He is an honest person. Just that our beliefs do not align, that they are adamantly opposed. But in his heart of hearts, I think Dan is a good person. And frankly, I was absolutely shocked when I heard that he was led out of the Pentagon by security last week. Now, Dan and I haven't talked in years, but I think that he is a fundamentally good and honest person. Now, another person from the sphere is this guy called John, I think it's Uyalat or something like that. He was at the Department of Veterans Affairs during the first Trump administration. I personally don't like the guy. I think he's a piece of shit. Then he got a job at the Pentagon, and he was the guy who was really bragging that Hegseth removed Jackie Robinson, the history of, the baseball player who was a veteran. He removed that from the Pentagon. And he was like, yeah, Jackie Robinson is a DEI hire or some crazy racist shit. Again, I think John's a piece of shit. But he just wrote an op-ed in Politico where he's talking about this purge of all of Hegseth's most longtime and loyal advisors. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. And I think this is one of those times for John. So if you want to read that piece, go to Politico and their opinion pages. But bringing this back to the beginning, to see Dan Caldwell pushed out like this, along with a couple of his colleagues, people who I know to be among Hegseth's longest term and most loyal advisors, I think that's highly, highly suspicious. And while I don't have any inside knowledge, knowing these people as I do, I can think of only two reasons why Dan would be pushed out this way. One is because of Elon Musk and some sort of corrupt intent that Elon Musk has, and he's trying to get rid of people who Hegseth trusts. Or number two, Dan and his colleagues are being pushed out by a more pro-war, pro-interventionist, and frankly pro-war crime contingent that gets to where Pete Hegseth really came from in his days of Vets for Freedom. So what do you think? Why do you think that the purge is happening at the Pentagon? Why do you think that Hegseth's advisors are getting pushed out? And who do you think is responsible for it?
Pete Hegseth seems to be more problematic than I thought. Well, I've known a lot about him from the last segment, and I'm just learning even more about him. And I really do think that it's not too long before his job ends. I don't know how long the government is gonna stay on his side, because if he doesn't clean his house, then, bugs are gonna visit his house, and it's gonna get uncomfortable. Let me know in the comment section what are your thoughts about this whole debate. Put it in the comment section.